She was just delivering mail, until every dragon in the Empire kneeled as she passed. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The package felt heavier than it should have. Emily Parker adjusted the strap of her delivery satchel as she stepped off the dimensional portal platform, her boots crunching against crystalline gravel that sparkled like crushed diamonds. Around her, the Draconic Empire's central hub stretched in impossible architecture, towers of obsidian and gold spiraling into a sky painted with 3 suns. She was just a mail carrier, the newest recruit for the Intergalactic Postal Service, and this was supposed to be a simple delivery run. Emily had been with the IPS for exactly 6 weeks. Her training had been straightforward: learn the portal codes, memorize the safety protocols, deliver packages on time, and don't make trouble with the locals. Earth had joined the galactic community only 2 years prior, and humans were still considered the new kids on the cosmic block. Most species viewed them with a mixture of curiosity and condescension. Harmless, they said. Cute, even. Emily didn't mind. The pay was good. She got to see the universe, and most days involved nothing more dramatic than dodging overeager tentacles or explaining that no, humans couldn't actually breathe methane. Today was different. The moment she stepped fully into the Empire's territorial zone, she felt it. A tremor ran through the ground, subtle but unmistakable. The air grew thick, heavy with a presence that made her skin prickle. Around the plaza, dozens of beings froze mid-stride. Reptilian merchants, avian bureaucrats, crystalline entities that shimmered in the triple sunlight. All of them stopped what they were doing and turned to look at her. More specifically, they turned to look at the package strapped to her back. Emily swallowed hard and checked her datapad. The delivery was marked as Priority 1, which usually meant diplomatic correspondence or high-value trade goods. The recipient was listed as Lord Varanth of the Obsidian Peaks, 3rd scale of the Western Dominion. The address led to the Noble Quarter, a 30-minute walk through the city's main thoroughfare. Standard delivery. Nothing unusual, except for the way everyone was staring. She took a breath, squared her shoulders, and started walking. The IPS motto echoed in her head: neither rain, nor sleet, nor dimensional rifts shall stay these couriers from their appointed rounds. She had a job to do, and she was going to do it. The streets of the Draconic Empire were a sensory overload. Buildings carved from single pieces of volcanic glass rose on either side of her, their surfaces etched with flowing script that glowed with internal fire. Market stalls lined the walkways, selling everything from enchanted weapons to bottled starlight. The air smelled of sulfur and cinnamon, an odd combination that somehow worked. Overhead, dragons wheeled through the sky, their scales catching the light of the 3 suns and throwing rainbows across the city. Emily had seen dragons before, of course. They were one of the founding species of the galactic community, ancient and powerful, with a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. Most dragons she had encountered were polite but distant, treating humans the way one might treat a precocious child. Interesting, perhaps, but not particularly important. That was about to change. She was 3 blocks into her walk when the first dragon descended. It was a massive creature, easily 50 meters from snout to tail tip, with scales the color of burnished copper and wings that blocked out 2 of the 3 suns. It landed in the middle of the street with a thunderous impact that cracked the crystalline pavement. Market stalls toppled. Pedestrians scattered. The dragon's head swung toward Emily, golden eyes the size of dinner plates locking onto her with an intensity that made her heart skip. Then, slowly, deliberately, the dragon lowered itself to the ground. Its massive head touched the pavement, wings folded tight against its body. Tail curled in a gesture that Emily's training hadn't covered, but her instincts recognized immediately. Submission. Emily froze, her hand instinctively going to the package on her back. Around her, the street had gone completely silent. Every being in sight was staring, open-mouthed, at the prostrate dragon. Then another dragon landed, this one with scales like flowing mercury. It took one look at Emily, or rather at the package she carried, and immediately assumed the same submissive posture. Then another dragon, and another. Within minutes, 7 dragons had landed in the street, all of them kneeling before Emily Parker, human mail carrier, age 26, from Portland, Oregon. She stood in the center of a circle of bowed draconic heads, her heart hammering, her mind racing. This was not in the training manual. This was not a standard delivery situation. This was very, very not normal. One of the dragons, the copper-scaled one who had landed first, spoke. Its voice was like an avalanche given words, deep and resonant, and full of barely contained power. "Human," it said, "you carry the crown of embers. We acknowledge your authority. We pledge our fire to your service." Emily blinked. She looked down at the package strapped to her back, then back at the dragon. The crown of embers? She checked her datapad again. Nope. Still listed as diplomatic correspondence for Lord Varenth. Definitely no mention of any crown. And certainly nothing about authority or pledging fire or whatever else the dragon was talking about. "I think there's been a mistake," Emily said, her voice coming out steadier than she felt. "I'm just delivering a package. Standard IPS protocol. This is addressed to Lord Varenth of the Obsidian Peaks." The dragons didn't move. If anything, they pressed themselves lower to the ground. The copper dragon's eye, still fixed on her, whirled with colors Emily couldn't name. "You carry the crown," the dragon repeated. "Whether you know its nature or not, whether you claim its power or not, you are its bearer. And so we kneel." Emily felt a headache building behind her eyes. This was going to require so much paperwork. But first, she had to finish the delivery. She took another breath and addressed the copper dragon directly. "Look," she said, "I appreciate the whole kneeling thing. Really, it's very impressive, and I'm sure it means something important. But I have a schedule to keep and a package to deliver. So if you could all just, unkeel, that would be great. I'll just take this to Lord Varenth and be on my way." The copper dragon made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a growl. It was hard to tell with dragons. "Lord Varenth has been waiting centuries for that package. Human. He will wait a few minutes more. We must ensure you are properly escorted." Escorted? Emily glanced around at the 7 massive dragons, each one capable of leveling a city block with a sneeze. That seemed like overkill for a mail delivery. "I don't need an escort," she said firmly. "IPS regulations are very clear. Couriers operate independently. No exceptions." The copper dragon finally raised its head, though it remained in a crouched position that still counted as kneeling by dragon standards. Its eyes met Emily's, and for a moment, she saw something in that gaze that wasn't just submission or respect. It was fear. "You do not understand," the dragon said quietly. "The crown of embers is not merely a treasure. It is a test. It is proof. It is the answer to a question our people have asked for 10,000 years. And you, human who walks with the sun on your back, you are the first in all that time to carry it without burning." Emily's hand tightened on the strap of her satchel. The package suddenly felt much heavier. She thought about her training, about the simple rules she had been taught. Deliver the package. Be polite. Don't get involved in local politics. But this was clearly beyond local politics. This was ancient dragon history, prophecy stuff, the kind of thing that showed up in epic sagas and cautionary tales. She was still just trying to do her job. "Fine," Emily said. "You can escort me. But quietly, okay? No more landing in the middle of the street and causing traffic jams. I'm on a schedule." The copper dragon's eyes swirled with what Emily was pretty sure was amusement. It rose to its full height, the other dragons following suit. They formed a loose circle around her, wings spread just enough to create a living corridor. When Emily started walking again, they walked with her, their massive feet shaking the ground with each step. The crowd that had gathered kept a respectful distance, but Emily could feel their stares. Whispers rippled through the onlookers in a dozen different languages. She caught fragments as she passed. The human, the bearer, the prophecy, the fire that does not burn. Her datapad buzzed with incoming messages, probably from IPS headquarters demanding to know why her delivery time was stretching into overtime. She ignored it. One crisis at a time. They made it another 5 blocks before the next interruption. This time, it wasn't a dragon. It was a draconic priest, one of the Empire's religious leaders, dressed in robes that shimmered like liquid flame. The priest stood in the middle of the street, arms raised, and as Emily approached, they fell to their knees. "Chosen," the priest said, their voice ringing with fervor. "You have been marked by the first fire. You carry that which was lost. You walk the path of smoke and ash. We have waited so long. Emily stopped. She looked down at the priest, then at the dragons surrounding her, then at the growing crowd of onlookers. This was getting out of hand. She needed to deliver this package and get out of here before things escalated further. But the priest was blocking the way, and the crowd was getting bigger, and her datapad was now actively alarming about missed delivery windows. Okay, she said, addressing the priest directly. I need you to get up and move, please. I have a delivery to make. The priest looked up at her with eyes that glowed like coals. You do not understand the significance, they said. The crown of embers was forged in the heart of the first sun, cooled in the blood of the dragon progenitor, and sealed with the promise that one day, one who could bear it without being consumed would come. That one would unite the scattered flames. That one would restore what was broken. Emily pinched the bridge of her nose. She could feel a migraine coming on. This was supposed to be a simple delivery. In and out. 20 minutes, tops. Now she was apparently in the middle of some ancient prophecy that nobody had bothered to mention in the item description. Look, she said, I'm just a mail carrier. I don't unite things. I don't restore things. I deliver things. That's it. So if you could please move, I'll deliver this package to Lord Varenth, and you all can sort out your prophecy stuff on your own time. The priest's expression shifted from reverence to something that looked almost like pity. The dragons around Emily shifted uneasily, their scales rustling like wind through metal leaves. The copper dragon leaned down, bringing its massive head close to Emily's level. You still do not understand, it said softly. Lord Varenth is not the recipient of the crown. He is its keeper. He has held it in trust for 3 centuries, waiting for the one who could claim it. When we sensed its presence moving through the city, we knew. The bearer had arrived. Emily felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. She grabbed the strap of her satchel for support, her mind spinning. This didn't make sense. The package was clearly addressed to Lord Varenth. She had the delivery confirmation right here on her datapad. Unless, she pulled up the delivery details again, reading more carefully this time. The package was addressed to Lord Varenth. Yes, but the sender was listed as the Council of First Flames. And in the special instructions section, a section she had skimmed over because it was usually just notes about gate codes or doorbell preferences, there was a single line, to be claimed by the bearer. Delivery to keeper if unclaimed. Oh, Emily said quietly. Oh, that's not good. The copper dragon's eyes swirled with something that might have been sympathy. You are the bearer, it said. Whether you accept the role or not, the crown has already chosen you. That is why we kneel. That is why the priest calls you chosen. That is why. A roar split the air, so loud and so powerful that Emily felt it in her bones. The dragons around her immediately shifted into defensive positions, wings spread, heads raised. The crowd scattered. Even the priest scrambled backward. Emily looked up and saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. A dragon descended from the sky, larger than any she had seen so far. Its scales were black as volcanic glass, shot through with veins of red that pulsed like lava. Horns crowned its head like a jagged crown, and its eyes burned with literal fire. When it landed, the street cracked wide open, buildings trembling from the impact. This was not a creature that kneeled. This was a creature that made others kneel. Lord Varenth, the copper dragon said, and for the first time, Emily heard genuine fear in its voice. The black dragon's gaze fixed on Emily. It was not the same as the others. There was no submission here, no reverence. There was challenge. There was anger. There was something old and bitter and very, very dangerous. So, Lord Varenth said, his voice like grinding stone. The council has sent my crown with a human courier. How delightfully insulting. Emily straightened her spine. She had dealt with difficult customers before. Angry customers, customers who thought they could intimidate her, customers who believed humans were beneath them. She had learned quickly that the key to handling such situations was to remain professional, follow protocol, and under no circumstances show fear. Even when confronted with a 50-ton dragon that looked like it wanted to eat her for breakfast. Lord Varenth, she said, keeping her voice level. I have a package for you. IPS Priority 1 delivery. I just need a signature confirmation and I'll be on my way. The black dragon laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You dare, he said, moving closer. You dare to speak to me as if this is a simple transaction? You carry my crown, human. The crown I have guarded for 3 centuries. The crown that proves my right to rule. And you think you can simply hand it over and walk away? Emily didn't flinch, though every instinct screamed at her to run. She kept her hand steady as she pulled out her datapad. According to IPS regulations, she said, Priority 1 deliveries require physical signature confirmation from the recipient. If you're refusing the package, I'll need that in writing. Otherwise, please sign here, and we can both move on with our day. The dragons surrounding her made sounds of alarm. The copper one moved as if to intervene, but Lord Varantha's glare stopped it cold. The black dragon leaned down until his face was level with Emily's, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his scales, could smell the sulfur on his breath. His eyes, burning like twin furnaces, bore into hers. You are either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, he said softly. Perhaps both. Do you know what the Crown of Embers does, little human? Do you know why I have guarded it for so long? Emily met his gaze steadily. She thought about the priest's words, about the way the dragons had kneeled, about the weight of the package on her back. She thought about prophecies and ancient promises and tests she hadn't asked to take. And she thought about her job, about the simple act of delivering mail, about the promise she had made when she put on the IPS uniform. I know it's addressed to you, she said. I know you're supposed to receive it. And I know I'm supposed to deliver it. That's all I need to know. Something shifted in Lord Varantha's expression. The anger was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or respect. He pulled back slightly, his massive head tilting as he studied her. The Crown of Embers, he said, speaks in a language older than words. It recognizes worthiness not through lineage or power, but through something more fundamental. 3 centuries I have waited for one worthy to claim it. 3 centuries I have tested every supplicant, every warrior, every noble who thought themselves deserving. All failed, all burned. And now, the council sends me a human mail carrier. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter, almost contemplative. The prophecy says the bearer will be one who serves without seeking power, who walks through fire without being consumed, who carries truth without pride. I dismissed it as poetry, as wishful thinking. But here you stand, with my crown on your back, surrounded by dragons who have already pledged themselves to you, and all you want is a signature. Emily adjusted the strap of her satchel. Look, she said, I don't know anything about prophecies or worthiness or any of that. I'm just trying to do my job. The package is addressed to you. I'm delivering it to you. If there's some cosmic significance to that, you all can figure it out after I finish my shift. Lord Varanth studied her for a long moment. Then, to Emily's surprise, he began to laugh. It started as a rumble deep in his chest and built into a sound like thunder rolling across mountains. The other dragons shifted nervously, clearly uncertain how to respond. Even the crowd of onlookers seemed unsure whether to be terrified or relieved. Oh, the council is cleverer than I gave them credit for, Lord Varanth said when his laughter subsided. They knew exactly what they were doing. Very well, human. You want to complete your delivery? Then let us complete it properly. He straightened to his full height, wings spreading wide enough to cast the entire street in shadow. His voice, when he spoke next, rang with an authority that made the air itself vibrate. I, Lord Varanth of the Obsidian Peaks, 3rd scale of the Western Dominion, keeper of the Crown of Embers, do hereby summon the High Council to witness the claiming. Emily's datapad immediately exploded with notifications. She glanced down and saw that her delivery status had just been flagged by IPS headquarters, the Galactic Community Diplomatic Corps, and about 15 different dragon lordships. Great. This was definitely going in her permanent record. Before she could protest, the air around them began to shimmer. Portal energy crackled, and one by one, figures began to materialize. More dragons, even larger and more imposing than Lord Varanth, each one radiating power that made Emily's skin prickle. These were the rulers of the Draconic Empire, the ancient beings who had helped shape galactic civilization. And they were all looking at her. An elderly dragon, scales white as snow and eyes like chips of ice, spoke first. Its voice was surprisingly gentle. The human bearer, it said, we did not expect you so soon, nor did we expect you to arrive via postal service. It seemed efficient, another dragon said, this one with scales that shifted through rainbow colors. The council did want to avoid making a spectacle. By summoning the High Council into the middle of the market district, Emily couldn't help herself. That's your definition of avoiding a spectacle? Several of the dragons made sounds that might have been coughs or might have been laughter. The elderly white dragon's eyes crinkled with what Emily was pretty sure was amusement. Point taken, it said. Young human, do you understand what has occurred? Do you comprehend the significance of the burden you carry? Emily sighed. She was getting very tired of being asked that question. Everyone keeps telling me about prophecies and worthiness and ancient tests, she said. But nobody has actually explained what the Crown of Embers does, why it's so important, or why every dragon in the city feels the need to kneel when I walk by. So no, I don't understand. I just want to deliver my package and go home. The white dragon nodded slowly. That, it said, is precisely why you are worthy. The Crown of Embers is not merely a symbol of rulership, human. It is a living artifact, forged in the first days of our species, imbued with the essence of the dragon progenitor herself. It judges the soul of any who touch it. Those found wanting burn from the inside out. Those found worthy become something more. Emily felt the weight of the package pressing against her back. She thought about the heat she had been vaguely aware of since she first picked it up, the warmth that she had dismissed as just the normal temperature fluctuation of dimensional travel. Now, with all these dragons staring at her, that warmth felt ominous. And what exactly happens to those found worthy? She asked carefully. The white dragon's expression grew serious. They become the fire-bearer, it said. The one who can unite the scattered clans of dragonkind. The one who can speak with the authority of the progenitor herself. The one who carries the flame that does not consume. We have been fragmented for millennia, young human. Our people scattered across 1,000 worlds, divided by politics and pride and ancient grudges. The prophecies spoke of one who would come to remind us of what we once were, what we could be again. Emily looked around at the assembled dragons, at the crowd of onlookers, at the copper dragon who had first kneeled before her. She thought about her small apartment on Earth, about her cat who was probably wondering why his dinner was late, about the simple life she had been living just a few hours ago. And if I just want to deliver the package and leave? She asked. What happens then? You carry the crown, Lord Varenth said, his voice surprisingly gentle now. It has already judged you, already chosen you. You could refuse the role, yes. You could hand the package to me and walk away. But the crown would remain yours, calling to you, binding you to the fate of our people whether you accept it or not. That is the nature of prophecy, human. It cares nothing for convenience. Emily closed her eyes and counted to 10. She thought about IPS regulations, about dimensional portal codes, about the simple rules she had been taught. Deliver the package. Don't make trouble. Definitely don't get involved in ancient prophecies that could reshape galactic politics. But here she was, standing in the middle of the Draconic Empire's capital, surrounded by the most powerful beings in known space, and they were all waiting for her to make a choice she had never asked to make. She opened her eyes and looked at Lord Varenth. Can I at least finish my delivery shift first? She asked. I have 3 more packages after this one, and I'm already way behind schedule. The assembled dragons stared at her in stunned silence. Then the white dragon began to laugh, a sound like wind chimes made of crystal. One by one, the other dragons joined in, even Lord Varenth, his rumbling chuckle shaking the ground. The crowd of onlookers relaxed, tension draining away as laughter echoed through the street. Oh, the white dragon said, wiping at its eyes with a winged tip. Oh, we have been too serious for too long. Yes, young human. Yes, you may finish your delivery shift. But know that when you return, we will have much to discuss. The crown has chosen, and whether you are ready or not, change is coming. Emily nodded, relief washing over her. She turned to Lord Varenth and held out her datapad. So she said, signature? Lord Varenth stared at her for a moment. Then slowly, carefully, he extended one massive claw and pressed it against the screen. The datapad beeped cheerfully, confirming the delivery. Emily made a note in the special circumstances field. Recipient summoned High Council. Delivery completed despite extensive delays due to spontaneous prophecy fulfillment. Recommend hazard pay adjustment. There, she said, tucking the datapad away. Package delivered. Thank you for your cooperation, and have a nice day. She reached back and unstrapped the package from her satchel. It was smaller than she had expected, a cube roughly the size of a shoebox, wrapped in material that shimmered like captured starlight. The moment it left contact with her body, she felt the loss like a physical ache, as if she had set down a part of herself. The dragons around her all leaned forward, eyes fixed on the package with an intensity that made Emily's survival instincts scream. Lord Varanth reached out and took the package from her hands. His claws, each one as long as Emily's forearm, handled it with surprising delicacy. He held it for a moment, his expression unreadable, then slowly, deliberately, he handed it back to her. "This is yours," he said simply. "I have kept it in trust for 3 centuries, waiting for its true owner. That owner is you. I am merely returning what was always meant to be yours." Emily stared at the package in her hands. It felt warm, almost alive, pulsing with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she was just the delivery person, that there had to be some mistake. But looking into Lord Varanth's eyes, she saw only certainty, only acceptance. "I have 3 more deliveries," she said weakly. "I can't carry this around all day." The copper dragon stepped forward. "We will guard it," it said. "We will keep it safe until you return. And then, when you are ready, we will teach you what it means to be the fire bearer." Emily looked down at the package, then at the dragons, then at the crowd that had gathered. This was insane. This was impossible. This was so far beyond the scope of her job description that she wasn't even sure what section of the employee handbook to cite. But she was also, fundamentally, a practical person. And practically speaking, she couldn't make the dragons unkneel. She couldn't unmake the prophecy. She couldn't unfulfill whatever cosmic test she had apparently passed just by doing her job. "Fine," she said. "Hold on to it. But I'm coming back for it after my shift, and when I do, someone is going to sit down with me and explain exactly what's going on. In small words. With diagrams if possible." "Got it." The white dragon inclined its head. "Agreed," it said. "We will prepare a full explanation. With diagrams. Perhaps also refreshments. It has been a very long time since we had cause for celebration." Emily handed the package to the copper dragon, who accepted it with a reverence that made her deeply uncomfortable. Then she checked her datapad, confirmed her next delivery address, and started walking toward the nearest portal station. Behind her, she could hear the dragons conferring in low voices, could feel the weight of their gazes on her back. But she didn't look back. She had a schedule to keep. The next 3 deliveries passed in a blur. A diplomatic pouch for the Crystalline Consortium, which went smoothly aside from the recipients asking repeatedly if she was the human who made dragons kneel. A shipment of medical supplies to a colony on the edge of council space, where the grateful doctors tried to give her a medal and she had to politely decline. And finally, a personal package to a retired military officer who turned out to be a chatty avian who wanted to discuss Earth literature for 20 minutes before Emily could extract herself. By the time she made it back to the Draconic Empire's capital, the 3 suns had set, and the city was illuminated by bioluminescent crystals that grew from the buildings like flowering vines. The streets were quieter now, the market stalls closing down, but Emily could sense activity in the shadows. Dragons, watching her, waiting. She made her way back to the plaza where she had first encountered Lord Varanth. The High Council was still there, along with what looked like several dozen other dragons of various sizes and colors. They had set up what could only be described as a ceremonial space, with floating lights and arranged seating and a raised platform in the center. As Emily approached, every dragon in sight immediately kneeled. She sighed. Apparently, that was going to be a thing now. The white dragon rose from its position and approached her, moving with surprising grace for something so large. "Welcome back, Firebearer," it said. "We have prepared as requested. Explanations, diagrams, and also food, because you have been working all day and we thought you might be hungry." Emily's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly. She hadn't eaten since breakfast, and that had been 12 hours and 6-dimensional jumps ago. "I could eat," she admitted. What followed was the strangest dinner party Emily had ever attended. The dragons had, with admirable creativity, procured human-appropriate food from somewhere, along with a chair sized for someone not 50 meters long. She sat at a table that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of amber, while the High Council arranged itself around her in a semicircle. The copper dragon, whose name she learned was Mediis, sat closest, the package containing the crown of embers resting between its forepaws. As Emily ate, the white dragon, who introduced itself as Elder Scythia, began the explanation. Our people, Scythia said, were once united. 10,000 years ago, when the galaxy was younger and chaos reigned, the dragon progenitor led us to greatness. She was wise beyond measure, powerful beyond imagining, and under her guidance, we helped bring order to the stars. But even the greatest of us are not immortal. When she died, she left behind the crown of embers, imbued with a fragment of her essence, her wisdom, her judgment. The elder paused, its ancient eyes distant with memory. We thought we could share power, Scythia continued. We thought we could rule by council, by democracy, by collective wisdom. And for a time, it worked. But dragons are proud creatures, human. We are territorial and ambitious and stubborn. Slowly, over centuries, we fragmented. Clan turned against clan. Old alliances broke. New grudges formed. We became shadows of what we once were, powerful individually but weak as a people. And the crown? Emily asked, gesturing to the package. Mediis spoke up. The crown could unite us, it said, but only if borne by one truly worthy. We tried, in those early years. Every clan leader, every warrior, every scholar of note sought to claim it. All failed. All burned. The crown's judgment was absolute, and it found us all lacking. Eventually, we stopped trying. We sealed it away, kept it safe, and told ourselves it was better this way. That perhaps unity was not meant to be. Until the prophecy, Lord Varanth said, moving into the light. He had been standing at the edge of the circle, watching silently. 300 years ago, a seer emerged among our people. She spoke of a bearer who would come from outside our race, who would carry the crown without burning, who would show us the path back to unity. We dismissed it at first. The idea that one of the lesser species could succeed where we had failed seemed absurd. Emily raised an eyebrow. Lesser species? Lord Varanth had the grace to look embarrassed. Our arrogance talking, he admitted. We have since learned to be more diplomatic in our phrasing. But the sentiment was widespread. We did not believe an outsider could bear the crown. We thought the prophecy metaphorical at best, delusion at worst. Until you walked through our city with it on your back and did not burn. Emily set down her fork and looked at the assembled dragons. So let me get this straight, she said. I accidentally passed a test that none of you could pass, and now you expect me to unite your entire species because a prophecy said so? Essentially, yes, Scythia said cheerfully, though we prefer to think of it as destiny rather than accident. Emily rubbed her temples. And if I refuse? The dragons exchanged glances. Mediis spoke carefully. The crown has chosen you, it said. That bond cannot be broken without killing one or both parties involved. If you refuse the role of fire-bearer, the crown will remain dormant, its power unused, and our people will remain fragmented. You would live your life, but you would always feel its pull, always know there was something left undone. It would, forgive the phrase, haunt you. Great, Emily muttered. So I'm cosmically obligated to fix dragon politics. This is not what I signed up for when I joined the Postal Service. Lord Varanth made a sound that might have been sympathy. We understand this is overwhelming, he said. We do not expect you to make a decision tonight. Take time. Learn about our people, our culture, our conflicts. Speak with the clans, hear their grievances, understand what unity would require. The crown has waited 3 centuries for you. It can wait a little longer. Emily appreciated the gesture, but she could already feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her. These beings, these ancient, powerful dragons who had shaped galactic civilization, were looking to her for guidance. It was absurd. It was terrifying. It was also, she realized with a strange sense of inevitability, going to happen whether she was ready or not. Fine, she said. I'll take the time to learn. But I'm not making any promises. And I'm keeping my day job. If I'm going to unite the Draconic Empire, I'm doing it on my own terms. The dragons erupted in what could only be described as cheers, a cacophony of roars and wing beats that shook the plaza. Scythia's eyes glimmered with something that looked like tears. That, the elder said softly, is the first wise thing any potential fire-bearer has said in 10,000 years. Welcome, Emily Parker of Earth. Welcome to a burden you did not ask for and a destiny you cannot escape. May you find it more rewarding than it sounds. Emily couldn't help but laugh at that. The absurdity of the situation, the earnest hope in the dragon's faces, the fact that she was sitting in the middle of an alien empire eating pasta while discussing prophecies, it all crashed together into a moment of perfect, ridiculous clarity. She was a mail carrier who had accidentally become the chosen one. It was the most human thing she could imagine. The following weeks were a whirlwind of education and diplomacy. Emily continued her delivery routes, much to the confusion of IPS headquarters, but now she was accompanied by a rotating honor guard of dragons who insisted on protecting the fire-bearer. She learned about dragon history, about the complex web of clan loyalties and ancient feuds that had fractured their society. She visited different territories, met with clan leaders, listened to grievances that dated back centuries. It was exhausting. It was frustrating. And it was, Emily discovered, exactly what she was good at. Because Emily Parker, human mail carrier from Portland, Oregon, had spent years navigating bureaucracy, mediating disputes between difficult customers, and finding practical solutions to impossible logistics problems. She approached dragon politics the same way she approached her mail route, methodically, efficiently, and with an absolute refusal to accept that something couldn't be done. When the Obsidian Peaks clan and the Silver Talon clan refused to speak to each other due to a resource dispute from 200 years ago, Emily scheduled them for back-to-back meetings and delivered each clan's perspective to the other in writing, with footnotes and citations. When the Eastern Dominion threatened to withdraw from council negotiations because they felt disrespected, Emily organized a cultural exchange program where young dragons from different clans served as postal apprentices, learning cooperation through shared work. She didn't have the power of the crown yet. She hadn't formally claimed the title of Firebearer, but she was, in her own way, already uniting the dragons, not through force or authority, but through the simple, profound act of making them talk to each other, of treating their ancient conflicts as problems to be solved rather than immutable facts of existence. 3 months after her fateful delivery, Emily stood once again in the central plaza of the Draconic Empire's capital. This time, the entire High Council was present, along with representatives from every major dragon clan. Thousands of dragons filled the sky and streets, all of them watching, waiting. In her hands, Emily held the package containing the Crown of Embers. She had avoided opening it until now, preferring to earn the dragon's trust through her actions rather than relying on the crown's authority. But the time had come. She carefully unwrapped the package, layers of shimmering material falling away to reveal a circlet of metal that seemed to be made of solidified flame. It pulsed with internal light, warm and alive and utterly alien. Emily took a breath and lifted the crown from its container. The moment her fingers touched the metal, the world exploded into fire. It didn't burn, not exactly. It was more like every nerve in Emily's body suddenly became aware of a heat that had always been there, a warmth that connected all living things, the fundamental energy of existence itself. She gasped as knowledge flooded into her mind. Not her knowledge, but the memories of the dragon progenitor, thousands of years of wisdom and experience compressed into a single instant of understanding. She saw the rise of dragon civilization, the battles fought and won, the mistakes made and learned from. She felt the grief of the progenitor's death, the desperate hope that her people would continue to grow, to thrive, to remember what they were capable of when united. And she felt the crown's judgment, that ancient, implacable assessment of her soul. It weighed her actions, her intentions, her fears and hopes and dreams. It measured her worth not in power or ambition, but in something more fundamental, in her willingness to serve, in her refusal to give up even when things seemed impossible, in the simple, stubborn determination that had made her keep walking through a city of kneeling dragons because she had a package to deliver. The crown found her worthy. Emily lifted it to her head, and as she placed it on her brow, the fire erupted outward in a wave of light and heat that washed over every dragon present. It didn't harm them. Instead, it reminded them of who they were. of who they had been, of who they could be again. One by one, every dragon in the plaza, every dragon in the city, every dragon connected to the vast network of their species' consciousness felt the presence of the fire-bearer. Not a ruler to be obeyed, not a conqueror to be feared, but a guide, a reminder, a living embodiment of the principles their progenitor had tried to teach them 10,000 years ago. Unity through service, strength through cooperation, power used not for domination, but for protection. When the light faded, Emily stood unchanged except for the crown on her head, its flames dancing but never consuming. She looked out at the assembled dragons and saw tears in many eyes, saw pride and hope and relief written across faces that had not known such emotions in centuries. Scythia stepped forward and bowed, not in submission but in respect. "Firebearer," the elders said, "Emily Parker of Earth, you have done what we could not. You have reminded us of what we forgot. What would you have us do?" Emily smiled. She thought about her mail route, about the simple satisfaction of connecting people, of ensuring that messages reached their destinations, that promises were kept. She thought about the unity that came not from grand gestures, but from small, consistent acts of connection. First, she said, "We're going to establish a better communication network between the clans. I'm thinking a postal service, actually. Regular, reliable contact. No message too small to deliver. Then we're going to set up a rotating delegation system where each clan sends representatives to spend time with other clans, learning their perspectives." And then, she continued outlining her plans, practical and detailed and eminently achievable. The dragons listened, their expressions shifting from surprise to understanding to growing enthusiasm. This was not the dramatic transformation they had expected. There were no grand declarations of new laws, no sweeping mandates from on high, just sensible, human solutions to ancient problems. It was perfect. The work of truly uniting the Draconic Empire took years. There were setbacks, conflicts, moments when old grudges threatened to derail everything. But Emily persevered, always approaching each challenge the same way she approached a difficult delivery route, with patience, creativity, and an unwavering commitment to getting the job done. She established cultural exchange programs, trade agreements, and joint scientific endeavors. She mediated disputes, celebrated successes, and slowly, methodically, wove the scattered dragon clans back into a cohesive whole. She also kept her job with the IPS, much to the consternation of her supervisors. She argued, quite reasonably, that her work as firebearer was enhanced by her continued experience as a courier. Understanding logistics, maintaining connections across the galaxy, literally delivering messages to their destinations, it all reinforced the principles she was trying to teach the dragons. Eventually, IPS gave up arguing and just gave her a promotion. She became the first ever ambassador of postal diplomacy, a position created specifically for her and one that would, in later years, be cited as one of the most innovative approaches to interspecies relations in galactic history. 5 years after that fateful delivery, Emily stood once again in the central plaza, now renamed Unity Square. Around her, dragons from every clan mingled freely, their differences celebrated rather than feared. The High Council had been restructured into a true representative body, with rotating leadership and transparent governance. Trade flourished. Art and science advanced. The Draconic Empire, once fractured and declining, had become a beacon of cooperation and innovation. Emily wore the crown of embers constantly now, so accustomed to its presence that she barely noticed the weight. She had grown into the role of fire-bearer, had learned to wield its authority with the same practical efficiency she brought to everything else. She was not a conqueror or a mystic savior. She was a mediator, a facilitator, a connector of beings who had forgotten how to connect. She was, in other words, still a mail carrier, just one with a much more interesting route. Mediis approached her, now serving as her primary advisor and friend. The Copper Dragon had grown close to Emily over the years, their bond deep and genuine. "We never imagined it would be like this," Mediis said softly. "We expected fire and fury, a warrior to lead us into battle or a prophet to inspire us with visions. Instead, we got you." Emily grinned. "Disappointed?" Mediis laughed, that rumbling sound that Emily had learned to love. No, it said, not disappointed, amazed. You showed us that the most profound changes come not from grand gestures, but from consistent, caring effort. You showed us that unity is not about making everyone the same, but about helping everyone work together despite their differences. You showed us that sometimes the answer to an ancient prophecy is just someone willing to do the work. Emily looked out at Unity Square, at the dragons young and old who moved through it with easy confidence, at the monuments to cooperation and the gardens of peace that now defined the space. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, about the simple act of carrying a package that had changed everything. You know, she said, I still remember filling out my application for the IPS. They asked why I wanted to be a courier. I said it was because I liked connecting people, making sure important things reached their destinations. I thought I was talking about packages and letters. She touched the crown of embers, feeling its warmth, its approval. Turns out, she continued, I was talking about people too. And dragons. And, apparently, entire civilizations. Mediis hummed thoughtfully. The Postal Service of Earth should update their recruiting materials, it said. Join the IPS. Deliver mail. Fulfill prophecies. Unite ancient empires. All in a day's work. Emily laughed, so hard she nearly cried. She could just imagine the poster. But beneath the humor, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had taken a burden she never asked for and made it her own. She had faced an impossible task and found practical solutions. She had done what humans had always done best, adapted, persevered, and refused to accept that something couldn't be done just because it had never been done before. The sun was setting over the Draconic Empire, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that rivaled any dragon's scales. Emily stood in the square she had helped create, surrounded by beings who had become her friends, her family, her purpose. The crown of embers burned quietly on her brow, its flames a reminder of responsibility accepted and promises kept. Tomorrow, she would return to her mail route. She had packages to deliver, after all, and a schedule to keep. The fact that she was also guiding an interstellar civilization toward unprecedented unity was just a bonus. She was Emily Parker, firebearer of the Draconic Empire, ambassador of postal diplomacy, and first human to make an entire species kneel. But more importantly, more fundamentally, she was still just a mail carrier trying to do her job right. And in the end, that had made all the difference. The years that followed established a new era for the Draconic Empire and for humanity's place in the galactic community. Emily's success in uniting the dragons created ripples throughout known space. Other species, many of whom had viewed humans as insignificant newcomers, began to take notice. If a single human could achieve what millennia of dragon civilization could not, what else might these peculiar beings be capable of? Emily became something of a celebrity, though she found the attention uncomfortable. Ambassadors sought her advice. Young dragons flocked to study under her guidance. The Galactic Council offered her positions of enormous authority, all of which she politely declined. She had a job already, thank you very much, and she happened to like it. But she couldn't entirely avoid the responsibilities that came with being the firebearer. She found herself mediating disputes between other species, applying the same practical approach that had worked with the dragons. A territorial conflict between the Crystalline Consortium and the Liquid Collective? Schedule alternating custody of the disputed region, with shared resource extraction managed by a joint committee. A trade disagreement between the Avian Federation and the Insectoid Swarm? Establish a neutral marketplace with transparent pricing and rotating administrative oversight. It was all, Emily thought, just logistics on a grander scale. And humans, it turned out, were very good at logistics. The IPS grew exponentially during this period. What had been a relatively small operation focused on Earth and nearby systems expanded into a truly galactic network. Emily's approach of using postal service as a tool for connection and diplomacy became standard practice. Couriers were trained not just in delivery protocols, but in basic conflict resolution, cultural sensitivity, and the kind of practical problem-solving that Emily had exemplified. The phrase humanity, fuck yeah, became something of an unofficial motto, usually whispered by couriers facing impossible deadlines or difficult customers. It captured a certain defiant optimism, a refusal to be intimidated by the vast and often overwhelming galaxy. Emily herself found it amusing, though she thought the sentiment was better expressed as humanity. Let's get it done. On Earth, Emily became a symbol of what humans could achieve in the wider universe. Children grew up hearing stories of the mail carrier who united dragons. Universities established programs in postal diplomacy. The small Portland apartment Emily had once called home became a historical landmark, complete with a plaque that read, "Home of Emily Parker, Firebearer, who taught the galaxy that sometimes the most important deliveries are the connections we make along the way." Emily visited Earth when she could, though her responsibilities kept her traveling more often than not. She maintained her apartment, kept her cat, much to the fascination of the Dragon Honor Guard who accompanied her, and spent quiet evenings reading or watching the rain that gave Portland its character. These moments of normalcy grounded her, reminded her of who she was beneath the crown and the title and the expectations. Mediis often joined her during these visits, the massive copper dragon carefully navigating the streets of Portland while curious humans stopped to stare. Emily had secured special permits, naturally, and the city had quickly adapted to hosting occasional draconic visitors. It helped that Mediis was endlessly polite and had developed a fondness for Portland's food truck scene. "Do you ever regret it?" Mediis asked one evening as they sat in a park, Emily on a bench and Mediis curled nearby like a massive, scaled cat. Taking on this burden? Emily considered the question carefully. She thought about the life she might have had if she had just delivered the package and walked away. Simpler, certainly. Quieter. But would it have been better? No, she said finally. I won't say it's always easy. There are days when I want to just throw the crown in a drawer and hide under my blankets. But I've helped people. I've made connections that matter. I've done work that needed doing. That's worth the complications. The humans I have met, Mediis said thoughtfully, seem to share this trait. They find the work that needs doing and then do it, often without asking for recognition or reward. It is both admirable and somewhat frustrating for those of us who prefer more dramatic gestures. Emily smiled. We have our dramatic moments, she said. We're just practical about them. Why waste energy on posturing when you could use that energy to actually solve the problem? This, Mediis said with absolute certainty, is why you were chosen. The crown saw not just your worthiness, but your approach to challenges. You do not seek power for its own sake. You seek solutions. And that, in the end, is what leadership should be about. The conversation stayed with Emily as she continued her work. Leadership as problem-solving rather than power-wielding. Unity as practical cooperation rather than enforced conformity. These principles, so fundamental to her nature that she barely thought about them, became the foundation of a new diplomatic philosophy that spread throughout the galaxy. 10 years after the delivery that changed everything, the Galactic Council formally recognized the United Draconic Empire as a stabilizing force in galactic politics. The fractured clans that had been slowly declining into irrelevance had become, once again, a major power. But this time, their power was used in service of the greater good. Dragons took on roles as mediators, engineers, explorers, and yes, couriers. They spread throughout the galaxy not as conquerors, but as partners. And at the center of it all was Emily Parker, still wearing her IPS uniform more often than not, still insisting on keeping her regular delivery routes, still approaching each challenge with the same practical determination that had first caught the attention of an ancient artifact. The crown of embers had become a part of her, its flames visible only to those who knew where to look. It no longer felt like a burden or an obligation. It felt like a tool, one more resource in her approach to making the galaxy a better place. She had learned to tap into its power when needed, to draw on the progenitor's wisdom stored within, but she relied more often on her own judgment, her own experience, her own very human insistence that every problem had a solution if you were willing to work for it. She trained successors, though she knew the crown could not be passed on in the traditional sense. It had chosen her and would remain with her until her death. But the principles she embodied, the approaches she had pioneered, those could be taught. She established academies throughout the Draconic Empire, where humans and dragons and dozens of other species learned together, studying not just diplomacy, but the fundamental skills of connection, communication, and practical problem-solving. The graduates of these academies became known as Firewalkers, those who carried Emily's approach into the wider galaxy. They wore no crowns, wielded no ancient artifacts, but they shared a common philosophy: serve without seeking power, solve without demanding recognition, connect without requiring conformity. It was, many observers noted, a very human way of approaching the universe. On Emily's 20th anniversary as Firebearer, the Dragons organized a celebration that lasted 3 days. Dragons came from across the Empire and beyond, bringing gifts and stories in gratitude. There were speeches, many speeches, praising Emily's wisdom and leadership. There were displays of dragon culture, art and science and history, all celebrating the unity she had helped create. There were ceremonies honoring those who had worked alongside her, recognizing the countless beings who had contributed to the transformation of dragon society. Emily endured it all with good humor, though she kept sneaking away to check her delivery schedule. Old habits died hard. On the final night of the celebration, as fireworks made from pure dragon fire lit the sky above Unity Square, Scythia approached Emily. The white dragon was ancient now, older than most mountain ranges, and moved with the careful deliberation of extreme age. But its eyes were still bright, still sharp, still filled with the wisdom that had guided the council through centuries. "Do you know what you have given us, Firebearer?" Scythia asked quietly. Emily shrugged, a gesture she had taught several dozen dragons over the years. "Unity," she said. "Cooperation. A chance to be something better than you were." Scythia shook its massive head. "No," it said. "I mean, yes, those things. But more than that. You have given us hope. For 10,000 years, we have been declining, slowly fading into memory, becoming irrelevant. We told ourselves it was inevitable, that our time had passed, that the younger species would inherit the galaxy while we retreated into history. You showed us that decline is a choice, not a destiny. That it is never too late to change, to grow, to become something new while honoring what we were." The dragon paused, its eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You did not just unite us, Emily Parker," Scythia said. "You saved us. And for that, we will be eternally grateful." Emily felt her own eyes growing damp. She had never thought of it in those terms, had never considered that her work was about anything as grand as saving a species. She had just been solving problems, one at a time, in the most practical way she could manage. But looking at Scythia, at the joy and pride in the ancient dragon's face, she understood. Sometimes the most profound acts of heroism were the ones that felt like common sense. Sometimes saving the world, or in this case an empire, was just a matter of showing up, doing the work, and refusing to give up. "You would have saved yourselves eventually," Emily said. "I just helped speed up the process." "Perhaps," Scythia said, "or perhaps we needed someone from outside, someone who saw us not as we were or as we had been, but as we could be. Someone who believed in us, even when we did not believe in ourselves. That is the true gift of the Firebearer. Not power, but perspective." The celebration continued around them, dragons and humans and dozens of other species mingling freely in a display of unity that would have been unimaginable just 20 years before. Emily watched it all and felt a deep, profound satisfaction. This was what connection looked like. This was what happened when beings chose cooperation over conflict, when they worked together instead of apart. This was what she had been trying to deliver all along. The final years of Emily's life were spent consolidating the work she had begun. She stepped back from active leadership, allowing younger voices, both dragon and human and other, to take the helm. But she remained a presence, an advisor, a symbol of what was possible when beings of goodwill chose to work together. She never stopped being a courier. Even when her duties as Firebearer consumed most of her time, she always maintained at least a few routes, always kept that connection to the work that had started everything. Her colleagues joked that she had the most overqualified delivery person in galactic history. Emily just smiled and kept delivering packages. On her 78th birthday, Emily made a final delivery. It was a small package addressed to the Council of First Flames, the same organization that had sent the Crown of Embers to Lord Varanth so many decades before. She carried it herself, walking the now familiar streets of the draconic capital, surrounded by beings who had known her for most of their lives. The streets were different now. Where once there had been tension and division, now there was easy camaraderie. Where once dragons had clustered by clan, now they mingled freely, their old allegiances remembered but not divisive. The city had become a true capital, not of an empire in the old sense, but of a community that stretched across the stars. The council received her in a chamber that had been redesigned dozens of times since her first visit, each iteration reflecting the changing nature of dragon society. Lord Varanth was there, now serving as elder of the Eastern Dominion. Mediis was there, aged and scarred from years of service, but still vibrant. Scythia was gone, having passed peacefully 5 years before, but younger dragons had taken their place, carrying forward the wisdom of their predecessors. Emily handed over the package and stepped back. The council members exchanged glances, confused. They had not ordered anything, had not expected any delivery. One of them carefully opened the package and removed its contents. It was the crown of embers. Emily touched her head, where the crown had rested for more than half her life, and found it bare. At some point during her walk, the crown had left her, had settled back into its container, had completed its purpose. I think, Emily said quietly, my delivery is complete. The crown chose me to unite you, and we did that together. But I was always just the bearer, not the owner. It belongs to all of you now, not to rule you, but to remind you of what you can be, of what we all can be when we choose connection over division. Lord Varanth rose, his massive form trembling. Firebearer, he said. Emily, you cannot simply. I can, Emily interrupted gently. And I am. The work is done. The Empire is united. The connections are made. You don't need a firebearer anymore. You have each other. That's the whole point. The council erupted in protests, in pleas for her to reconsider, in desperate attempts to convince her to keep the crown. But Emily remained firm. She had carried it long enough. She had done what needed doing. Now it was time to let go. In the end, the council accepted her decision because they had learned, over decades of her guidance, to trust her judgment. The crown of embers was placed in a new reliquary, not hidden away as it had been before, but displayed openly in Unity Square. A reminder, as Emily had said, of what was possible. A symbol not of power over, but of service to. Emily Parker, relieved of her role as firebearer, returned to Earth. She moved back into her apartment in Portland, fed her elderly cat, and reported for her shift at the local IPS office. Her supervisors, who had long since given up trying to understand her career trajectory, simply assigned her a standard delivery route. She was 82 years old when she died, peacefully, in her sleep, with her cat curled up beside her. The galaxy mourned. Dragons and humans and countless other species held memorials, shared stories, honored the memory of the mail carrier who had changed everything. But Emily would have been pleased to know that her most lasting legacy wasn't in the history books or the monuments. It was in the thousands of couriers, dragon and human and other, who put on their uniforms each day and went out to make deliveries, who saw their work not just as a job, but as a form of connection, who approached each customer, each package, each challenge with the same practical determination that Emily had embodied. The Intergalactic Postal Service adopted a new motto, inscribed on every office, printed on every uniform. Delivering more than packages, we deliver hope. Below it, in smaller text, was a phrase that Emily herself had once used, half joking, but which had come to define an entire philosophy. Every delivery matters, because every connection matters. And in Unity Square, beside the reliquary holding the crown of embers, stood a statue, not of a powerful warrior or a mystical prophet, but of a young woman in a simple uniform, a delivery satchel over her shoulder, looking up with determination and a hint of humor in her bronze eyes. At the base was a plaque that read, Emily Parker, Firebearer. She was just delivering mail, until she delivered so much more. The galaxy had learned a lesson from Emily Parker, one that would echo through the ages. Greatness was not always found in grand gestures or mighty powers. Sometimes, it was found in simply showing up, doing the work, and caring enough to keep trying even when things seemed impossible. Sometimes, The most important deliveries were the ones that connected hearts, built bridges, and reminded beings throughout the stars that they were stronger together than apart. She had been just a mail carrier. And in being that, in doing that simple job with dedication and heart, she had become something more. Not because she sought greatness, but because she brought greatness to everything she did. The package had been delivered, the connection had been made, and the galaxy was better for it. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.